Godsi is a consultant clinical psychologist from Kegworth, and over the course of his career, he's worked extensively with violent men and women, as well as their victims. He currently works as a forensic psychologist at the University of Nottingham with clients who have been victims of the adverse effects of abusive parenting. Well, I caught up with him a little earlier, and I asked him if he'd been shocked by the scenes that we've seen across cities in England over the last week.
No, I don't think anyone working at the coalface with young people, the kinds of people that are said to be involved in these kind of riots, are at all surprised by this.
Why is that?
Let me start off by saying you've got to be very careful that this is a complex issue, and I think anyone looking for simple solutions is really going to be missing the point. It's very easy to jump into knee-jerk responses by saying they're just mindless criminals, and if you want to do that, then you end the debate there and then, and you don't see kind of any answers or any explanations, and I really don't find that particularly helpful. I think it's very important to say that if you're trying to explain something that's difficult and antisocial and destructive like the riots we've seen, first of all, it's complex. Second of all, you've got to try and find explanations that are not seen to be condoning what's going on. You can understand something without condoning it and saying that it's okay. So those are the first things I want to say. Now, it is a complex problem. We're looking at, to my mind anyway, we're looking at, there's a personal element to this, the kind of personal direct experiences of the people involved, and there's a political and there's a cultural element to this. Now, these kids, I mean, they're not all kids, let's be clear about that. Yeah, I mean, these people don't have a stake in society, don't feel they have a stake in society, they don't care because society's made it absolutely clear to them that society doesn't care about them. The only time society is particularly interested in most of these people is when they've committed crimes. There's very little other provision for them, and they don't feel like they have a stake, they don't care about what's going on, they have no kind of, they don't share the same moral code that the majority do.
And is that the personal area
Well, I think the personal area is that you've got to understand, I mean, when people talk about bad parenting, I mean, some of the kids I'm working with, they don't have any parenting. And we're talking about a generation or two generations of children that have been grown up in utter chaos. And I'm literally talking about kids that nobody has taken responsibility for. No parents shunted in and out of the care system, moved in and out of the criminal justice system. The only attention they get is when they commit crimes. There's very little other provision for them. And their own personal experiences are being disenfranchised, growing up in abusive environments, and for whom criminality or pro-criminal attitudes and behaviour are, frankly, a way of life. They are just how you survive at the bottom of the heap.
What I'm intrigued by is some of the language, some of the rhetoric we've heard used. And it's about having almost a credibility. And I've heard the police referred to as feds. And I just wonder, do you think there is an element of playing cool here, of emulating perhaps gangster rap they've heard, or video games? Or is that putting things at a very base level?
No, I think that is simplifying things. What I would say is that I think you will find the hardcore, the instigators, the people who are the first to throw the windows, they will be the ones that have had the most destructive experiences. They're the ones that care least. The people following are less likely to have those kind of difficult backgrounds. Perhaps they're more opportunistic. But culturally speaking, this is all part of the same continuum. This is part of a culture that values very simple, from the kind of X Factor or Britain's Got Talent. You can become famous overnight without having to work hard for it. You can get rich quick without having to work hard for it. You can turn a blind eye, buy something off the back of a lorry, get something cheap. That's just considered just kind of a normal part of cultural life.
So the quick fix solution.
The quick fix solution, and also, there's a real pervasive sense that your only worth is defined in really superficial terms. It might be that you haven't got enough food to eat, but as long as you've got a Tommy Hilfiger or a designer T-shirt on, then you're okay. Then you're worth something.
That's so strange, because one of the criticisms has been, Elie, that these people are, they are impoverished, they're living on the poverty line, if not below it, they're struggling every day, but they've all got, £100 trainers on and £300 Blackberries. So it is about those labels.
First of all, some of that will be knocked off anyway. second of all, if that's your only sense of worth, then that's where you invest what little money you have. People can't afford to buy lottery tickets, but they buy lottery. They'd rather go without a loaf of bread and buy a lottery ticket. There's a continuum. This happens all the time. And there's a real element here of people living a just superficial a kind of existence where these things really matter. They take on a disproportionate amount of importance when all the other values don't, the kind of values that we take for granted don't exist.
That is consultant clinical psychologist Elie Godsi in conversation with me, and we'll be back with Elie Godsi, clinical psychologist from Kegworth, about the rioting we've seen in some English cities earlier this week. He told me that the disturbances weren't simply just about poverty.
If you look at different countries, the most violent, there's two things that stand out about the most violent and the most dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, income inequalities. Okay, it's not just about poverty, it's relative poverty. It's about whether you grow up in an otherwise rich society and you have nothing.
Right.
Now, the number of billionaires and trillionaires and millionaires has gone up exponentially over the past 20 or 30 years in this country, and income divides have expanded beyond all belief. It's absolutely incredible what's happened. Now, the other fact is the amount of money that a country spends on its safety net. Now, if you have a system where there's vast inequalities and increasingly less and less spent on the safety net for the poor third, then you're in trouble. So this has been going on for 30 years now, this expansion. Now, if we're going to have a society where we're going to be bringing in austerity measures, the cancellation of benefits, the cancellation of youth organisations, the cancellation of support for all of those kind of voluntary organisations that support the bottom third of society, then we're asking for trouble. And, the bottom line is, if you've got a society based on competition, then you promote antisocial behaviour, you promote aggression, and you inhibit cooperation. And there is absolutely a link between the complete dysfunction of the markets that are going on at one end of society and the dysfunction that's going on at the bottom end of society. They are absolutely connected. The market doesn't care. The market has no rules. The market has no safety net. The market has no sense of fair play. The market doesn't care. There is no sense of fair play or social justice within a free market. Without regulations of the market, this is the illness, this is the disease that you will inevitably have from a sick society. And it is a sick society, and the top and the bottom are connected in exactly the way that I'm saying.
It sounds, though, we then need some sort of massive cultural revolution, a different set of priorities as to how we all live our lives. But it's very difficult trying to persuade 98% of a society that that's what we need to do when we've seen a small fraction commit the sort of crimes we've seen.
It isn't 98%. I'm sorry, the middle classes and the political classes don't inhabit this world. This is
I'm talking about the small percentage that has committed these acts.
No, but this is happening. This is what I'm saying to you. This is happening all the time. This is just a visible eruption of it. This kind of criminality and antisocial behaviour, not on this kind of visible scale, but it's going on all the time. The only way you see it is in the crime statistics. The political and middle classes don't know this is going on. They turn a blind eye. They don't care. The only time they care about what's going on is if someone's obviously created a crime or obviously doing something antisocial. Antisocial, you ask people in the poorer states about violence and antisocial behaviours going on every day, day in, day out. There are gangs of young people creating antisocial behaviour all over the country all the time. This isn't new. This has just become visible, that's all. That's why people have suddenly started to show interest, because it's become visible in a way that it hasn't manifested itself for 20 or 30 years, since the mid-'80s.
So how do we try and redress that balance?
Well, okay, I mean, if you want cultural change, if you want people's values to change, it's a long-term thing. There's no quick solution, and ultimately you're looking at political solutions. We had an opportunity in 2008 with the crash of the system to regulate it, to put checks and balances in the marketplace. There was nothing done. The system has not altered. We did nothing at that time. There was an opportunity, and a once-in-a-generation opportunity to modify the system in 2008. We didn't take the opportunity. It's still happening now. Ultimately, there are political and economic solutions here that that if you really want to change it, you're not going to change people's attitudes until they feel that they've got a stake in the society, until that society gives them hope, gives them a future, gives them a part to play, and values them. If they're not valued, they won't care.
Do you then think we can see more of this in the coming weeks and months?
We carry on with austerity measures. We carry on with the cutback on that safety net for the bottom third. Yes, I'm absolutely convinced we will see. If not in the coming weeks, but this will be more visible more of the time. And the point I really want to stress is this is going on all the time anyway.
How do we then have a political party that will be brave enough to bring about these alterations without hacking off, let's face it, the vast majority of their voters, and start giving more of their tax away to help such a cause?
Well, I'm not talking about necessarily giving more of their tax away. We've got to have checks and balances so that the market is rigged. The market, an unfettered market, is rigged. The myth of trickle down is a myth. Some of it trickles down, most of it trickles up. That's just how it works. It's designed to do that. And to kind of tut morally about the antisocial behaviour, literally antisocial behaviour of the bottom third, when the top 5 or 10% are constantly behaving in antisocial ways, is utterly hypocritical.
Is he bang to rights? Or have you been nodding your head in disagreement with what Elie Godsi had to say to me, a clinical psychologist? Elie had to say there, Dave. What do you reckon?
Well, I only caught the tail end of it, but I can wholeheartedly agree with him. The banks have not paid for any of the misery they've caused. They've just announced their profits, or their losses, should I say. I'm going to say we made a loss because of the PPI, they're having to pay back when they rob people. The banks have never paid for what they've done. It's only the poor people who've had to pay. I'm not surprised with the riots in London. This is the start of. It's happened in Egypt. It's happened in Libya. It's happening all over the Middle East. It'll happen here as well. Where everyone's got mobile phones now, so they can all communicate with each other.
I just can't help but wonder: are we not doing a disservice to the fighting for freedom that those people in the Middle Eastern countries you've just mentioned are, when, as Elie said himself, there are the repressed and the really feeling they don't count in society, they have no investment, society just ignores them, individuals. But then we've had dozens, if not hundreds more, leap on the back of that, just really thieving.
People are, yes, okay, so you'll always get that, but people are repressed. That's the bottom 10% are repressed, bottom 20% are repressed. The top 5% have been creaming it off for years. And as he said, it's all geared up for the top 5% to cream it off all the time. And that's all they do.
But
they're not bothered about you and me or anybody else. Yeah,
I just can't help but think, though, it's a very ideal way of looking at it, but by human nature, we are greedy. We are greedy creatures. And what do you not? The pursuit of going out to work, the pursuit of gaining money is so we can put bread on our tables and roofs over our heads. And if we get an opportunity to earn more, we're not going to turn that down.
So how do you earn the money to keep the roof over your head? You have to go out to work, and you work damn hard. People work damn hard. Those people who can't go out to work, those people who maybe not got the intelligence to have a decent job, or be a politician, or be a con man, should I say, as a politician, or a good actor.
But aren't they the ones going out and doing the writing? Aren't they the ones that haven't got the income, haven't got the money? These are the people that are out of work.
There are other people. No, don't agree. Well, when a millionaire was one of the people, must have been called.
Well, as I've said, there was a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon, wasn't there?
Yes, but I know, but those people, the millionaire would have gone out for a good time. But you take Africa. The money we give to Africa, it doesn't go into the hands of the natives, the people, the poor people. It goes into the hands of the despots, the dictators. So that's why you've got Ethiopia and Kenya at the moment, where you've got starving people.
So what do we do? Well, they can't control the clouds in the sky, can they? And bring the harvest and bring the rains. But what do we do in our society?
What they can do, those Somalis who are pirating.
Dave, we're talking about the situation in this country at the moment. So what do you, Dave? we're talking about the situation in this
Yeah,
country.
okay.
What do we do? Those that are creaming it off the top, those people that employ thousands in their industries and their businesses, do we make things so harsh and so taxing that they take their industries elsewhere? I tell you what, I'll go and set up in Estonia. They're not going to charge me anything like over here. And then we lose that financial input altogether.
I don't agree, because people won't leave this country at all. They've got to pay for something they've done. You know, they've caused the repression. They've caused the situation as it is now.
But they've not gone out and thrown bricks through windows, have they?
No, they've taken money away from people. They've taken access away from people. They've taken jobs away from people. BP are making people redundant now. Companies all over. You've got to look at Derby. What's happened to Egg? You know, all the people who work for Egg, it's gone. All the people working for Bombardier is gone. And that again is stinking bankers. It's going to be settled with the bankers again. And the bankers don't pay for anything. And everyone has to use the bank nowadays, because everyone has to have a card. At one time, you got paid your money in your hand and wages, and then it was deemed that it was easier to put the money into the banker's hands.
Dave, thank you very much indeed for being with us this lunchtime. Dave from Derby was his thoughts, and as he said, caught the tail end of what Elie had to say on the programme, but very much with him. Let's also have a word with Michael, who's in Hilton. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, as I said earlier, I think the trouble is now, we've just got, this country is about the most overpopulated on the planet, and years ago I read a book about psychology.
That's a very big statement to come on with about an overpopulation of this country.
What I'm saying is, any animal, including the human race, when it's got too many people, too many members, it turns in with murder and mayhem and unrest and everything else. So, and I think this is the trouble with this country now. You know, there's no living space now anymore, and we've got people at the bottom of the pile now all struggling.
Isn't the psychology, though, that we are social creatures? We are adapted and meant to live within a group.
And of course, what rather amazed me is nobody ever mentioned 40 years ago Mr. Power, what he said. You know, that's been avoided like the plague. And of course, it's hardly been helped by immigration, of course. And I think this is a trouble. Like, there's just too many people on this planet and in this country.
Well, two people living in...
It's all breaking down.
But isn't that actually, again, down to the economics? People are living in urban areas because that's where the available and affordable housing is. I mean, do we need to start building more in the countryside? But then how do you afford the transport to get to work and do a job?
And there again, food prices are rising. Do we need to build in food-producing land? You know, I mean, we're a small country. I mean, in my lifetime, I've seen huge chunks of countryside disappear under development and housing that won't produce any food now. This is the whole thing. The whole thing's like a chain, really. I think the politicians don't, work down the chain and sort things out. You follow me?
Michael, thank you very much indeed for being with us this lunchtime. Michael in Hilton adding his contribution to the programme. If you would like to do the same before 1